And this calmness came over me, and I just accepted it that this could be the day I was going to die. Because a lot of the things I say, if you can listen to the story, a lot of truths can unfold. Okay. And I come out of this meditation and something feels funny. I'm not touching the carpet anymore.
Okay, well, hello, my friends. Today, our guest is Doug Grummons, and I'd like to welcome Doug onto the show. He's a
Thank you.
near-death experiencer and an avid surfer, and is known to his friends as the Wave Whisperer. And Doug's had many spiritual experiences, and hopefully he'll tell us about a few of those. And so you can give us a little bit of background or wherever you want to start, or if you want to get right into your NDE, you can start there.
They call me the Wave Whisperer, but I swear I don't have any magical powers. I have no like connection with the universe that makes waves better for me. It just a big coincidence that it happens all the time.
All right.
Yeah. There was a time before the NDE. I was a young surfer, and I got sick. I got really sick, and the doctors couldn't figure out what was causing me to be ill. So I went to all kinds of different doctors. I did all kinds of, the Chinese medicine, acupuncture, acupressure. I tried everything. Traditional Western medicine was not helping me. The doctors just said to me, "We don't know. I mean, we see what's happening to you, but we don't know what's causing it." And I remember a time not long before I went to California the first time, but I remember a time where I was in a cafeteria and the doctor told me I might have cancer. And I'm like, oh no, I'm too young to die. I'm not ready to die. I said to myself, I haven't even been to California yet. I haven't surfed California yet.
Seriously.
I'm like, I can't die yet. So I booked a trip to California, and I studied Aikido at the time. So it was going to be an Aikido seminar I was going to up in Oakland. And
Right.
I flew into LA, and I was going to hit every surf spot that I could hit all the way up the coast, all the way up to San Francisco.
All
And
right.
yeah, that was quite an adventure. Never been to California before, and I remember getting off the plane, and the first beach I could get to was Santa Monica, and there were no waves there, and the water was the same ugly brown as we have in Texas.
Oh,
I
wow.
was just like, no, this isn't what I saw in all the pictures. so so anyway, I went from Santa Monica, and I started driving north, and I stopped in right in front of Neptune's Net, which is a pretty good surf spot. I didn't know this, but there's a surf spot, right out front of the restaurant, basically, and you could park on the hill there. And I mean, I just saw some amazing stuff there. I thought that part was beautiful. The water was kind of bluish and prettier and clear. When you got away from LA, it got better. So I actually surfed there, spent the night there, then started working my way up the coast. I had a couple days to get up to the coast. The seminar was on a Thursday, and I got there on a Monday. So I took 3 days. I stopped in Ventura. I stopped in Santa Barbara, and surfed all these spots. And it seemed like the farther I got up the coast, the bigger the waves got. Like coming from Texas, we get waves, but they're not the greatest quality. And the biggest we get here, maybe head high, not anything a lot bigger than head high here starts getting so currenty and so bent out of shape that it's just hard to ride. But anyway, so I got up to the Oakland seminar, Aikido seminar, and Rick Raul was the sensei, and he was a six dan Aikidoist, really beautiful soul. He reminded me of my father a lot, but more how you say more spiritually beautiful, right? And there was something about the guy that I didn't understand, but there was something about him that I was drawn to. And I took the seminar on Friday night, and then Thursday night, excuse me. And then Friday morning, we had Aikido seminar again. And something came over me and said, hey, you got to go to Santa Cruz. He says, I don't care what's going on with the Aikido, but for some reason, I was told, get my butt down to Santa Cruz. And this is in May of 1998.
Okay.
And yeah, so just to give you a reference how long ago this was, but and I was pretty young surfer, and I showed up to Santa Cruz, and the waves were pumping. I mean, just I didn't know anything about Santa Cruz really. I thought I'd never been there before, but it was just I didn't even know this, but it was a freak swell that just showed up, and there were breaks everywhere. I mean, every place that could break was breaking. They had, over by the pier, it was breaking on the inside, probably about head high and real barely for the shortboarders. And you you know where Steamer Lane is, right?
Yes, I do, as a matter of fact. Yeah.
Yeah, Steamer Lane is like three or four different breaks, but there's first, there's middles. I think there's one called outsides. But
Yeah.
I was surfing. I didn't know this at first, but from the beach, it's a cliff line all the way out to Steamer Lane, right? And I didn't know that there were stairs to 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 get out there. So I paddled freaking almost 3/4 of a mile just to get in the lineup. And everybody's up on the cliff laughing at me, and I'm like, "What's going on?" I mean, I don't get it. And then when I finally got out there, it's like, "Oh, there's stairs." It's the only city that built stairs going down to the surf breaks.
Did any of them? Yeah.
So, yeah.
Did any of them give you any grief for being a tourist?
No, no, not
Okay.
at all. In fact, I took two boards with me to California. I took a real short board, and I took my 8 foot Eaton longboard. It's a Boneser style. You probably remember the Bonesers, right? They're like two fins, and then they got two little side bite fins beside them. The
Right.
Boneser was big in California back in the 70s and the 80s. But so I had that board, and since it was so big, my little shortboard was actually too small for these big waves. And this is the biggest surf I'd probably ever surfed. And so I surfed Friday, Saturday, and then I think the NDE happened on Saturday. Okay. And I took off on a wave. I was surfing this break, and the waves were probably somewhere in the 8 to 12 foot range. Not super big, but pretty darn big for me.
Big enough.
And
Yeah.
I was having a hell of a time. I mean, I was just really enjoying that Eaton board worked perfect. I was, I was at a spot pretty much by myself, but there were other surfers around, and not right by me, but other surfers around on the other breaks. And anyway, I took off on this one wave, and I ate it on the takeoff. I botched the takeoff, and I got sucked over the falls, all the way down, hit the bottom of the water, went underwater, and then like a washing machine, it just ragdolled me. It just rolled me and rolled me and rolled me until a point came where I was like, hold on, I'm out of oxygen. I'm like, oh
Wow.
shit, what's going to happen now? What am I, and this calmness came over me, and I just accepted it that this could be the day I was going to die. And what happened was I was in such a state of ecstasy from all the beauty and the joy of experiencing Santa Cruz. It was totally different feeling from sitting in the cafeteria crying about dying, and here I am accepting it, wholly accepting it, saying, "Okay, this is it. I'm done. I have no more oxygen. I can't fight it anymore. I can't get to the surface." And what I did was I just closed my eyes and let go. I just went limp. I let go, and I didn't suck water in yet, but I let go. And then as soon as I did this, I saw this like golden light with my eyes closed. And I was like in amazement of the light, and it made me forget about the turbulence being under the water. Then it felt like somebody reached into the water and grabbed my collar and pulled me to the surface. That's what it felt like.
Were you wearing a wetsuit or?
Yeah, I was wearing a wetsuit. Yeah,
Okay. I was gonna
yeah,
say
yeah.
your collar.
Yeah, Santa Cruz is pretty much always cold.
Yeah,
So
up
yeah,
north.
and
Yeah.
this was May. That was May 2nd, the day that that happened. What happened because of that was I got to the surface and I couldn't believe I was still alive. I was just like, oh my God, how did I live through that? you know, just this total amazement that hey, I'm still here. And I kept surfing. But I looked around to thank the person who saved me, and there was nobody there. I was by myself. I was just like, okay, that was weird. Maybe just because you know a little bit about surfing yourself. It's just like when you relax and go limp, your body doesn't fight the currents, and sometimes I've learned that will pull you back up to the surface.
Yeah.
But if you're rigid and you're fighting it, you lose oxygen for one, right? You use up all your oxygen twice as fast. But if you relax and go limp, you can last probably almost another minute down there, without drowning.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that because I was just a young dumb surfer from Texas of all places. But yeah, so okay, so the next day, Sunday morning, I I think I surfed for maybe an hour, and then I took a little break, and I went up to the hotel room, and I rented this room in Santa Cruz at this hotel that was right on the cliff. It's facing, it's facing the pier. It's the hotel's still there. I've been there a couple of years ago, and the hotel's still there. But there was these five amazing big trees in the courtyard of the hotel, and they had a small pool. And around the pool, they had these lounge chairs, the white plastic ones that fold back, and
Right.
you can sit up a little bit, you have it inclined a little bit, and you can adjust the incline.
Right.
Yeah. So I laid down in that chair, and I don't want to be presumptuous and think that everybody will believe everything I'm about to say, but I laid down in that chair, and as I closed my eyes, I went into a meditation. And when I started meditating, I said to God, God, I'm never going to be any younger. I'm probably never going to surf as good as I do now, which is not true, but but you feel that way when at this pivotal point of mystical vibration going on around you, where there's so much beauty and so much joy, and you're so full of bliss and happiness because of everything you've experienced on the vacation or in life and in life in general, right?
Right.
So I said, I don't care about any future. I said, God, I mean, this is it for me. This is it. I don't want any future, and I don't care about the past. So for the first time in my life, I lay down in that chair and totally relaxed. I don't think I'd ever really relaxed as much as that moment. And then I went into meditation, and that's when the real miracle happened. That's when the drop and the ocean dissolved into each other.
What do you explain what you mean by that
Uh,
for our listeners?
sure, sure. A lot of people, a lot of mystics explain that the drop in the ocean is basically godliness, and you are just a drop on its journey returning to the ocean one day.
Right.
And if you can come to this realization before you actually leave this body, then something miraculous happens to you.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, it felt like I was lifted off the chair too. I don't know if it really happened, but I felt weightless, and like
Okay.
I was like a couple feet above the chair. I was just weightless, and
Was
I
anybody
was.
else down there with around the pool with you or?
You know what? The girl that was tending the hotel, she, like a couple hours later, I went out for dinner after this happened, and had this amazing look about her, like, what is it with you? You know, I'm like what? What's going on? I don't get it.
Hey, I
But
saw you levitating at the pool this morning. What's going on with you? You know.
um,
So, anyways, you're in the chair and you go into this meditative state, and then what happens?
then basically, what was any separate identity in me dissolved. There was no more I. From that moment on, there was no more I. The I disappeared. I know that it's linguistically that may not be correct to say, but because you can't just say Doug meditated or
So you felt like you were one with everything,
yeah,
something like
I
that.
oh yeah. What happened? I mean, to be descriptive, it's kind of tricky to talk about because I don't want to ruin the experience for anybody that has not experienced something like that, because I think I hear that almost every person's enlightenment is a little bit different, right?
Right.
Um, the door I entered basically, I think, was tantra. Tantra was kind of like the needle that broke the haystack.
Okay.
Yeah. So um, because I think it was tantra, I experienced this love, this complete essence of love that had no opposite to it. Right? It was just pure love, and the sky. I had my eyes closed, but it looked like I had my eyes open. Like I could see everything. I could see those four trees. I could see the ocean. I could see everything with my eyes closed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like my third eye opened up and it could see all this. And in the distance, off in the horizon, this light, this yellow golden light filled the sky. Then it filled the ground. It filled the ocean. As it got closer and closer to me, the trees were lit yellow. The grass was lit yellow. When I say yellow, it's more gold.
Okay.
And then as the light got closer, it actually touched my skin. And when the light touched my skin, it felt like honey. Is like electric honey. Okay. So,
Okay.
yeah, I know that sounds crazy, but every cell of my body was lit up by this light. There was not a part of me that wasn't part of this light. No, like I said, I don't expect too many people to believe all that, but it
Well, the type of people that listen to this will probably, I don't know
understand
if
that.
they'll
Yeah.
believe it, but they'll at least
Oh,
understand,
yeah.
and some of
And
them
I,
probably
I
have
I
similar
hear that
experiences.
people with NDEs, they experience God or God, a form of godliness when they had their NDEs too. I've watched quite a few of them, and
Right.
and a lot of them they express that God is pure love, and they say these things, and in a way, they say enlightenment is the final death, the ultimate death.
Hmm. Okay.
Um,
I don't think I've heard it
so
put that way, but yeah.
yeah, well, yeah, I read a lot, so um, my favorite author is pretty much Osho,
Okay.
and
I
I,
love
I
Osho
like I
too.
like Alan Watts. I like some of Ram Dass's stuff, but sometimes Ram Dass not rubs me the wrong way, but he has that leftover hippie-ish part of him that
Yeah,
that
true.
it's like he speaks truth, but in his own way.
Right.
So he's good. He's interesting to listen to. I'm not a big fan of Sadhguru because Sadhguru, I don't want to dog anybody else or any other spiritual leader. The way he described his enlightenment sounded exactly like something called samadhi. Are you familiar with samadhi?
Yeah, samadhi, right. Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
yeah,
Buddhist term for enlightenment to, at least in some people's view, I guess.
right. Um, I started experiencing samadhi probably around a couple months after I started meditating, which is probably about almost a year before I went to California. I started meditating,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were
So
already meditating before then. So okay, so
right, right.
take me back. You're absorbed in this golden light. It's touched everything. Couldn't think of what
Yeah,
I wanted to say, including
right.
you. Now, so then what happens?
Well, the realization started coming to me that one of the first realizations that happened was that I felt like the ocean didn't stop at the surface of the water. The ocean goes up a couple thousand feet, and
Okay.
we're still in the ocean. I know that sounds weird, but that's just this way I felt. Like it's like, oh, okay. So many different realizations just started flowing and flowing into me, and opening my eyes up to truth. And I guess basically I had eyes now that I'd never used before.
Right. Well, your eyes are closed and you're already seeing, so
Yeah,
you're not looking with your
yeah.
physical you're not seeing with your
Um,
physical eyes. Share one of these truths with us if you would.
Let me come to it back.
Yeah, no problem.
I wanted to say though that it was a peak experience.
Hmm.
It stayed with me like I was on this peak high experience for maybe a day or two. Monday morning, I flew back to Houston, and I really didn't want to leave California.
Can't
You know what
imagine
I'm
why.
saying? I mean, this amazing experience happened to me. Plus all the surfing I did up the coast and everything. I was just like, and I saw this homeless kid, probably about 20, 25 years old, sleeping in LA outside one of the bathrooms. And this look on this kid's face was like that of pure content. Like he had no worries and he had no problems, you know, he was sleeping, but I could just see the feeling, the essence about him that he was that way. So one of the realizations that kind of came to me, like I said, it's a peak experience,
Yeah.
and you got two choices. You can stay at the top of the peak or you can go back to the valley. And I chose to go back to the valley. Valley meaning life, the the uh, the marketplace, Osho calls it. Uh, and because the peak is not very big, very few can stay up there. And you can't stay long because there's no nourishment up there. There's no food. There's no shelter. The peak of a mountain is it's this beautiful thing. Have you ever been to the top of a mountain?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Um,
I've told people
and,
that that's where you'll find God. If I you won't find him in a church or some
oh yeah,
building. And so you go up to the top of a mountain and watch the sun come up one morning,
yeah.
and then ask yourself, okay, who's the artist that painted this picture?
Mhm. You know, when I got to the top of Breckenridge, the highest peak in Breckenridge, uh, it took me 4 hours to climb probably 300 feet. The altitude was 12,500 something at the highest peak there, and it's this big bowl section, and they opened up the bowl. Uh, when I got to the top of the mountain, there was one guy, some young guy that was from Colorado, and you could definitely tell he was from Colorado because he ran past me 4 times. He rode down the mountain 4 times by the time I made it to the top. It's like, oh God, this kid's killing me. But you could climb 10 feet at a time and be exhausted and not have any, way to take another breath. But when I got to the top of the mountain, I was also kind of taken back a little bit because there's this older couple, probably in their 60s or 70s, and of course I was much younger back then, but they're just sitting at the top of the mountain like they'd been there all day, enjoying the peak. But
They
and
probably were. If you're not used to that thin air, yeah, that'll wear
oh, I
you out
know.
real
I'm
quick.
lucky I didn't get oxygen poisoning, whatever you call it. What is it called when
Oh,
oxygen deprivation or
yeah,
something like that?
yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So leading into another mystical experience. I think I wrote about this in that book I sent you, but um, I made it down the bowl section without killing myself. And there's signs up at the top of that mountain that say, if you get hurt out here, it'll be a long time before anybody can come and help you. So you're going to be hurt for a long time and it's going to be excruciatingly painful. So they have these warning signs all over the top of the bowl. I rode the bowl, and then the next day, I think it was our last day at Breckenridge, I went up this like triple black diamond run. The ski lift, takes you up to the top of this run. It's real cliffy. That's what makes it a triple diamond. There's cliffs and stuff there. But anyway, I wanted to share this one with you in the few minutes we have together.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of the things I say, if you can listen to the story, a lot of truths can unfold. Okay. So this is a little bit of a Zen story for you. I got to the top of this hill at the mountain at Breckenridge, and I sat down, and I think it was the last day we were there, but I was just so full of bliss again. This was before May of 1998, before the Enlightenment experience, but probably about a year before it. And I sat down at the top of the mountain on a bench, and I was so full of bliss and so happy that I got to experience this great ski resort. That I closed my eyes and I prayed to God, and I said, God, this is so beautiful. Thank you for this experience, right? And I said, why don't you ride this mountain? You use my body. You take over my body. I'll just be the witness of it. I'll just be the observer. You just do your thing. And with that in mind, I buckled up my bindings, put my helmet on, and I took off down the mountain. And as soon as I launched down the mountain, I was just the observer now. I felt this spirit come over me. It felt actually, I couldn't describe it as what it was, but the spirit came over me and took the lead and used my body to fly down this mountain. And I had no fear at that moment, like, because I wasn't the one in charge. I was just the witness of it. I just watched myself fly down this mountain faster than I'd ever flown before, man. I just flew down this mountain, and I hit a big kicker. A kicker's, like a jump that like Evel Knievel would jump off of. It has a nice landing, and and you launch through the air about 20, 30 feet.
Right.
And with no fear, I hit that kicker, and I flew off the kicker and stuck the landing and flew to the bottom of the mountain. This whole experience was probably about 2 to 3 minutes to get from the top of the mountain to the bottom of the mountain.
Yeah.
And when I got to the bottom of the mountain, I was like, holy cow, what just happened to me? I said, God, you're a pretty good snowboarder. Like, dang. So, all right. So that was the last day we were there. And it was pretty close, to the point where we were packing up and leaving anyway. So that was my beautiful experience at Breckenridge. Right.
Yeah.
And I get back to Houston, and I just can't wait to, now I had been surfing for a little while. I've been surfing for probably about 3-4 years, maybe 3 years before that. And I wanted to experience God using my body again.
Okay.
Right. So we booked a trip to Ski Santa Fe, and actually we drove it from Houston to Ski Santa Fe. It's like a 17-hour drive.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's quite a drive. Yeah.
It's a haul.
And you did it in one day.
Oh yeah. I think so. But anyway, so I get to Ski Santa Fe, and I get to the top of the mountain, and basically I did the same thing. I said, God, use my body, and I'll just be the witness, and you enjoy the ride, and I'll just be the watcher. Right. So I buckled up my bindings, put my hat on, and aimed my board down the mountain. I went about 20 feet, and I fell flat on my face, and I got snow up my nose. I was just like snow all in my face and everything. And I'm like, what the heck just happened? I said, God, don't you want to don't you want to ride the snowboard again? And it didn't come to me. I didn't understand it until I think I got back to Houston, and I read this passage in one of Osho's books that says that God doesn't like to do anything twice. He's never made one human being the same twice ever.
Okay.
Uh, so there's a trick you can learn.
Been there, done that. I don't need to do it, try it again. I'm God. I've tried a lot of stuff.
Yeah. But there's a trick you can learn in life. And the trick is this, is that never try to repeat. Always make it different. Even if it's just slightly different. If you can make every single experience different, you get filled with bliss. You get filled with awareness. You get filled with love and blissfulness. And when it comes to samadhi, you and I touched on samadhi earlier. Um, if you look for samadhi, it doesn't happen.
Right.
And for our viewers that don't know what samadhi is basically when there's three states of samadhi, but the deepest, the highest level, you basically disappear. And it happens in meditation, and you basically go so deep into meditation that you dissolve. Your inner being just kind of like dissolves into the universe. And then what happens is at the same time, the universe and you kind of swap places, right? So the universe fills you up with all this bliss and all this, joyfulness. And then when you don't know what this is happening to you until you come out of samadhi. So it's not like sleep. It's different because you're conscious, but you dissolve into oneness. Um, and that's kind of what Sadhguru explained as enlightenment. And I'm like, well, that's samadhi. That's a little different. Enlightenment, you actually get to view it. You can see it. But in samadhi, you don't see it. You dissolve into oneness, into wholeness. And like I said, you and the drop dissolves into the ocean, and the ocean, dissolves into the drop. And because the ocean dissolves into the drop, when you come out of it, then you're full of bliss. And that's
But
the only way to know you entered it.
it's like a holographic fractal, I guess, is another analogy. The fractal, each fractal of the holograph has a picture of the entire holograph within it.
Yeah.
But I've had an experience in meditation where I've felt one with everything, yet I still had some vague sense of myself. So I'm not sure if you could call that samadhi or not. But it's like I was everything. And
Yeah. You got
I
to
was still
taste.
me to some degree. I don't know if you,
Yeah. It's a mystical thing that um, when you come back, you're you again.
yeah,
Does that make sense? You know,
yeah.
your identity is in like intact. And I started experiencing that when I was a young meditator. It was just kind of this dumb thought I had that if I could create gaps of no thought in my mind, then in a way I could create. I know it's going to sound stupid, but I could create a time where a space where I could go backwards in time and re-enter that body at that time. And if time travel ever became real, then that's your doorway to create a space for it to enter. And it was dumb. I mean, I'm not saying I believe in time travel. In fact, I don't know. I think if time travel really existed, because the Earth is always moving, and the sun is actually moving too, soaring around the Milky Way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you went back in time, you'd somehow have to get back to where the Earth was, 50, 60 years ago. It's moved a lot since then, and through space, right?
I don't know where I read it, but yeah, I don't know where I read it, but I've read it somewhere. The saying was, "There's no time, there's only clocks." Um,
Yeah.
and it kind of stuck with me. And, and of course, listening to and reading a lot of the NDE experiences, they say most of them say there's no time on the other side,
Right.
at least not as we understand it. And then I heard it explained once by Tom Campbell. Do you know who Tom Campbell is?
No, no,
He,
I'm familiar.
he wrote an incredible book. He's a nuclear physicist, but he did a lot of work with the Monroe Institute, um, where Robert Monroe is the guy who he kind of made out of body experiences popular. Anyways, he wrote a book called My Big Toe, which is his theory of everything. from a physicist perspective, and he said it's kind of like this when you're out of body. He said it's like files on a computer. He said they're all there and they all exist at the same time. He said
Right.
it's just the file that you're accessing at that time, at that point, if you will. And so I thought
Yeah.
that stuck with me because I'm a computer guy, and also I did a lot of work in the computer field, and so that made sense to me as an
Yeah.
analogy,
Yeah.
anyways.
Right. So that makes sense. So you know, I used to live in Virginia Beach, and I'm actually leaving for Virginia Beach in the morning,
Oh,
tomorrow
okay.
afternoon. Actually, yeah, I'm gonna go help my ex-wife sell some art up there. But anyway, um, and in the house we had, this is all in that book I sent to you, the Wave Whisperer. We bought this house from a retired um, police officer named Hoger,
Okay.
and him and his wife moved to Florida. Their plan was to go to Florida and retire, and we didn't know it, but Hoger passed away,
Oh,
and our house became haunted. He came back. Hoger came back to where we lived, and started doing things like unscrewing light bulbs all over the house. And
okay.
we would come home from work, and laying on the carpet would be two or three light bulbs. And like, how did they get down there? Anyway, I'm living in the house, and I didn't know that I knew we were being haunted, but I didn't know who or what. But something was definitely making the doors open and close at nighttime, always at nighttime too. All this stuff happens in the dark. And sometimes I feel that darkness is a conduit for spiritual activity. They can travel through the darkness, whereas when light's around, they don't travel as much. I don't think, or maybe harder. Who knows, right? But
Maybe,
anyway,
yeah. Maybe we just
yeah,
can't see them as well or something. I don't know.
yeah, something. The light does something different. But so I'm meditating and going into samadhi in my meditation room, and this one's a little hard to believe too, but because I never believed in levitation at all. When I heard that Buddhist monks could levitate and fly through the trees and do all kinds of stuff like that, I
Right.
always thought that was just mumbo jumbo, like it wasn't real. Anyway, so I'm coming out of I'm in samadhi. It takes me about 15 minutes of meditation to get to the first level of samadhi, and then about another 15 minutes to get to the second, and maybe about 5 minutes after that, I'm gone. I disappear. I come out of this samadhi, and I meditate lying on the floor. I don't have any problems with falling asleep, so I'm I can do that. I can lie down meditating, and I come out of this meditation, and something feels funny. I'm not touching the carpet anymore. I rose up about 6 or 8 inches above the floor, and
Wow.
I moved my hand, and I couldn't feel the floor, and I'm like, oh boy! And then as soon as I realized that I was off the carpet by a few inches, I came to and fell and hit the floor. And I've told this story to other people, and nobody seems to want to believe it. But and like I said, I don't have any magical power. I can't will myself to meditate. I wouldn't even know how to begin to want to do or have that skill. But this one time it happened, and quite an interesting experience had happened to you. But I would lie down on the floor, so full of bliss from all this experience, that it I could lie down on the floor for like 45 minutes, just drunk as a skunk, drunk with bliss. And I think Osho described it as divine wine.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, that's another. I put all that in the book too, but yeah, all
I'll
kinds of
link
crazy.
I'll link your book in the description for the listeners if they want to
Yeah, yeah. If they want
go and
to
read it.
tap into it, it's pretty cool. Cool. It's a short read, not too entailed.
I read some of it. I haven't read the whole thing yet, so
Yeah, I'm ruining the story for you.
no, it's okay. I
Yeah.
think I remember reading about this part, so I have read a bit of it, but not the whole thing. So
Um, okay, so they caught. I guess we can't go through the whole interview without at least explaining why I got this name, the Wave Whisperer.
Sure.
I felt like I noticed that when all the pros in Virginia Beach came to town for the big surf contest, the one that ends the year, something happens, and when certain people show up to the beach, all of a sudden there's waves. There hasn't been waves for months, and then all of a sudden the day of the contest, and this is before they had surf. These contests are set up years in advance. So they have a date, and whatever the surf is, that's what they served.
Is this in
It could be 1 foot. It could be 4 foot. We back in those days we didn't have surf forecasting like they do now.
is this in
Uh,
Galveston
but that was in Virginia Beach.
or Virginia Beach? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah, East Coast
I
surf is not like West Coast surf. I grew up
no.
on the West Coast, surfing the West Coast, and so yeah.
Oh yeah. North Carolina's got some world class waves. And North Carolina is only 2 hour drive
Yeah.
from Virginia Beach. But anyway, I noticed that it just seemed mystical or mysterious that when these certain people with this essence about them showed up, the waves got better or got bigger, right? I mean, it just this thought I had. But anyway, I moved from Virginia Beach down to Texas in about 2009. So I lived in Virginia Beach for 11 years,
Right.
and it took me 11 years to make all the friends I made in the water there because it's a heavy localized spot. First Street at Virginia Beach is localized almost as bad as Hawaii.
Yeah.
And if they don't know you, if you're a visiting pro, they might give you one wave. And if you mess up on that wave, you were sent to the back of the line. It was a heavy lineup. They ridicule people.
Oh yeah.
You know they
It's
make
like
it.
that in Southern it was like that in Southern California when I was growing up. If you
Yeah,
weren't a local, you would get some grief.
yeah, exactly. So anyway, I moved to Texas, and people that I surfed with started saying to me, things like, "Hey, you showed up, and the waves got better." Or the waves got bigger, the waves got better. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. They'd be thanks for showing up, Doug. But here's a little story. I wrote about it in a book. We had a party at my house, and this was probably somewhere in the middle of summer of like 2010. Yeah, probably about 2010. And a buddy of mine and I decided to go to the beach. We took a couple surfboards with us, and it was from where I was living at that time. It was about a 45-minute drive to the beach, and we drove to this beach that's kind of you can drive on it. It's a big wide beach, and you can drive on it. But when we showed up to the beach in the morning, there were no waves. It was like a lake. I mean, not even a half-inch ripple. It was a lake, and there were fishermen, parked about every 100 yards or so apart. And we bought djembe drums with us. Do you know what a djembe drum is? It's an African single drum that I've got several in the house here. I could show you, but
Yeah,
we took
I've heard of it. Yeah.
yeah, we took these drums with us, and we found a spot between the fishermen where we wouldn't disturb them. We didn't want to mess up the serenity of their day. So we drove down the beach a little bit, and we found this spot, and I think we broke out the drums because there's no waves, and we sat in the chairs, and we just kind of like just tapped on the drums and played the drums a little bit. And then right as I noticed, about a half an hour after we started drumming, there was a school of porpoise swimming right in front of us, probably about 20, 30 yards out. But this pod, stopped right where we were, and they were just playing. And I said, "Hey, Mike, let's get on our boards and go out and play with the dolphins." And he's like, "Okay." So we went out there, and we started, just hanging out, splashing water with the dolphins or the porpoises, whatever you want to call them. And then out of nowhere, waves started coming, only in this one spot, right where we were. I'm like, I don't know where the waves came from. I had no explanation, but it was about it picked up to about thigh high, which is just big enough to ride. And we rode for probably 20, 30 minutes easy and got a little tired. So I went to shore, and then Mike followed me to shore. And then as soon as we got out of the water, the waves disappeared and they were gone. I turned around and looked and they were gone. I mean, it was the lake again. And I was just like, Mike, where'd all the waves go? Yeah, that was a cool time.
So did you get a lot of invites then after people started noticing that when you were
Oh yeah, all the time. All my buddies would be like glad I showed up.
yeah, come
Uh,
on, come go surfing with us, Doug. We need some waves.
yeah, no kidding. A couple guys I told the story to in Saladita in Mexico.
Uh-huh.
Saladita's about 45 minutes north of Zihuatanejo.
Okay,
I don't know if I don't know if
I'm not
you're
familiar
familiar,
with it. No.
but anyway, we went down there the first year to we ever went, and we took longboards, and I took a couple guns because it gets big. When I say big in Mexico, every wave on the shoulder that came through the first day was head high.
Okay.
The peak, not which is about maybe 50, 60 yards past the shoulder, broke double overhead on almost every set on a good
Nice.
day. Yeah.
Nice.
So there's at this break, you got to kind of watch out what you're doing in Hawaii, just like in Hawaii at Pipeline. You've probably heard those guys say outside, outside,
Yeah.
outside. And when someone shouts that, if you don't start paddling, you're toast.
You got to make that last wave of the set before it breaks.
And you can see these waves a mile off. I'm
Yeah.
serious. Almost a mile down the beach, you can see this monster wave coming at you. But anyway, I noticed after a while that some of the guys were taking those waves, right?
Right.
And riding them. And I was like, I didn't know you could do that. So I after a couple of years of surfing there, getting more familiar with the site, I had a 9.6 McTavish board, and I took off on one of those triple overhead waves, and I didn't get my feet spread apart, so I had a very narrow stance on this board. You need kind of a wide stance to go down a steep drop, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had a narrow stance, and I made it to the bottom, and I was able to spread my feet apart, and I rode the wave probably about somewhere between 50 and 80 yards before it got to the shoulder. And when you get to the shoulder, you can make the option of you can either ride it all the way to shore, which is probably about another minute ride, or you can kick out and get back in the peak and get the choice waves, the best waves, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, anyway, I kicked out of this wave, and as I kicked out, I was pretty close to the shoulder. So there's this guy sitting there wanting to take the shoulder. And when I kicked out, if I would have kept going back over the back of the wave the way I was going, my board would have hit him. So
Right.
I had to let my board go into the wave that I was on, the triple overhead monster wave that I was on. I had to let it go, and I had a big wave leash on, and the wave's power pulled the leash right off my leg. That's
Oh
not
wow.
supposed to happen. That's not supposed to happen.
No.
And I'm watching my board disappear. And then I have to turn around and I got to take 3 or 4 more waves on the head before I could get out of the impact zone. I was tired just getting out of the impact zone. But anyway, luckily my girlfriend was out in the lineup and she was paddling back out and she saw me in trouble. And she paddled over and said, "You okay?" I said, "No, I lost my board. I got to go to shore." It took us with the two of us on one board. It took us probably about 20 minutes to paddle to shore. That's how far out the break is. But anyway,
Wow.
I was lucky that somebody saved my board. Somebody on the shore, because it's a rocky beach, like San Onofre, it's a rocky beach,
Yeah.
and somebody, grabbed my board and stopped it from getting all dinged up.
Well, that
But
was good. Yeah.
so anyway, I was telling you about this whole story, but that evening we were sitting down with some guys having a couple beers, and I told the guys, yeah, my friends call me the Wave Whisperer, and I said I don't have any magical powers, but it just seems coincidental that every time I show up to a break, it gets bigger. And they laughed at me and joked at me and everything, like, oh yeah, right, whatever, yeah, ain't nobody got that kind of power. I'm like, okay, it's cool. I don't believe it either, but it's cool. So guess what happened the next day?
What?
We woke up. It was so big, it was unrideable. It shut the bay down. I mean, it was like jet ski rideable, but you couldn't even get a jet ski out past all the whitewater because the whitewater walls are like 10 to 12 feet high, easy, and nobody surfed that day.
Yeah.
And I saw those guys that were laughing at me the night before, and I said, "Well, what do you say about this,
Yeah.
guys?" Oh dear.
Yeah. I used to surf a place in Dana Point, Doheny Beach called Boneyard. And
Yeah,
every so often we'd get a northern swell there and we get sometimes 20, 30-foot waves.
I
And
heard
yeah,
Dana Point was really good in the old days. Yeah,
yeah. Well, and it's still good, just not as often because the harbor messed it up, but they put
yeah.
the
The
harbor
harbor
in.
came in.
But there was a
Yeah.
jetty part of the harbor that would go out, and when you got a swell like that, you could only get out. You had to go run and fly off the jetty and paddle your butt off, get out there before the set came in, or you get smashed up against the jetty. And there was only a few of us that would try that, and there would be like a whole bunch of guys up there with their boards trying to work up the courage to try it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
of course, we were young then, and so we would give them a hard time. It's like, "Come on, guys, let's separate the men from the boys," and that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
and then go run and jump off and paddle out there. It was a little scary, but we were young and a little crazy and stupid, and it was a lot
It's,
of fun
it,
though.
it's kind of a good thing to be a little bit stupid of it because, what happened to me with losing my board in Mexico was, I've had all these amazing mystical experiences happen to me, but that really put the fear of God in me,
Yeah,
to the point where, like, hey, maybe you shouldn't be chasing down triple overhead. 20 is a 20-foot face. The face of the wave was 20 foot, so that's pretty big for a Texas boy. But um, it just made me think. I mean, I kind of lost my interest to ride waves that big anymore.
yeah.
It's just like, okay, I had my fun, it was real, but that's about as real as I want to get.
Yeah, been there, done that. Don't need to do it twice. Hey, I'm gonna use God's example, right?
Yeah.
So apparently I'm magic because I keep disappearing partially. I don't know if you noticed that or
No, I noticed that. That's cool. It looks pretty cool.
not. I don't know what I think. So this is a fake background, and I have a green screen. It makes it look good, but I think it's because this is
It's
green. See,
green. Yeah, it
see
wants
there
to
it
notice
goes.
it as green. Yeah.
It never did that. I've worn it before a few times, and it never did that. So I don't know why it's doing it now. So today's the day. It must be you, Doug. It must be your magical powers.
My magical surfing powers.
Yeah.
It's saying, get to the ocean, get to the ocean. Yeah. So hopefully, I'm going to stay up in Virginia for a week. My ex-wife has an art show at the Boardwalk Art Show this weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday this weekend, and then next weekend she's got one in the Hampton area. So there's two shows back to back. My ex-wife is a brilliant artist, and when we lived in Virginia Beach, basically I would meditate, and as I go into my meditation, I would send her energy, and she could somehow pick up on that energy. And I taught her how to Zen paint, which is kind of like painting, not using the mind. It's like staying ahead of the mind, using your consciousness to paint, not flow with what the mind says to do. But so we had this connection, and I guess over time, my ex-wife and I split up, and she felt like she lost that connection because she couldn't connect to me anymore. And I told her, no, I said, you got to find that connection in yourself.
Right.
You're the one creating this. You're just picking up on my energy, but you can have that same energy yourself, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
It's all
uh,
within you. Everything is within you.
I mean, her work is brilliant. She's a brilliant artist. In fact, you see that blue painting right there in the back,
Yeah, I can actually. Yeah.
right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
That's one of her paintings, and that's one of
Okay.
her paintings.
Okay.
We're still very good friends. Of course, you know, I'm going to
That's
go help
good.
her, but I mean, it was a 20-year relationship, right?
Yeah.
We were married for 20 years, and it was 20 good years, full of a lot of adventure and traveling and snowboarding and surfing and
Yeah.
all the great fun things we did together. I think we just became so much friends that the romance side of it kind of like just disappeared, you know.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I guess that happens with a lot of couples. I mean, they become your best friend. They become like your shadow in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah. So I'm kind of stoked to go up there, and I'm hoping the when I show up, the waves will get good. You never know.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you probably started paying attention after that when you showed up to see if, especially when there was no waves or very, very few or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, Doug, it's been a pleasure listening and talking, listening to your mystical stories and talking to you. We're going to try and wrap it up here, but before we
Okay.
go, is there any message that you want to leave with the listeners and humanity in general that you'd like to leave with us?
Um. Okay. So not to be biblical or anything, but
No, that's fine.
Jesus said in the Bible that that many of us will do things beyond him. You know, we will be like him, but we'll do things better than him, more than he could actually have done or realized in his lifetime. That was 2000 something years ago. I feel that because of all the ghostly experiences and a lot of the going into samadhi, what's happened since 2009. In 2009, my energy was stuck in my throat, right?
Okay.
So since that time, I've actually opened up other centers. The third eye and the throat and the crown chakra are basically all open, and I've realized that these states of samadhi are basically different dimensions that you can exist in.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I read somewhere in one of my books that Jesus attained to the fifth chakra, right?
Mhm.
And meaning that the basically the throat chakra.
Okay.
And some of the things that happen when you open up that chakra is you can hear spirits. You can I don't know if you can really so much talk to them, but they can communicate through a different dimension into you. So my work right now is basically realizing that how string theorists believe that there are 11 dimensions, right?
Hmm.
Okay, so height, width, breadth, and then the fourth dimension Einstein said was time. And from the fifth dimension to the 11th dimension coincides with all the chakras in your chakra system.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
And it's taken me a long time to realize what the heck's going on with all this stuff, but it's just the picture keeps getting clearer and clearer and making more sense out of it uh, than anyone could ever imagine. And the heart chakra, when 51% of your energy gets into the heart, when you raise that much energy up through your chakra system and up into your all the upper levels above the heart, then that's when the jump occurs. And I think that's when the jump happened in me when I was in California in 1998. I just used tantra techniques and not tantra sexual techniques, just tantra in itself means technique. I use these techniques to raise energy up and get 51% of my energy into the heart. And once you do that, then it's a democratic process that the rest of you just flows up into the upper chakras. And from that point on, time exists around you, like you and I discussed, but you're no longer a part of time. You belong to eternity because you went from the vertical, from the horizontal to the vertical. The vertical is like from A to more A to more A, and time is like from A to B, from B to C, and C to D, and so forth, right?
Hmm.
So time exists around us, but there's a way to go beyond it and to jump into this vertical plane of existence. And boy, is it a journey when, I mean, because when the throat chakra has something to do with your ears, the third eye has to do with visions and seeing things, and then the crown is basically this essence of the nirvanic samadhi that is the highest level, and that's God's abode. They say God lives in our heart, and he does. He's coming down from the crown to your heart all the time.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And when people, I think when people pass away, for some reason they want me awake. I don't know why, but I get bothered all the time by friends or people that share the same interest as me, like surfers or skydivers and things like that.
Hmm.
When they die, they come and they say something in my ear, and then the next day something will happen, and that phrase will carry over, and I'll hear somebody say what this person said in my ear that night. So anyway, so yeah, the message I wanted to leave you is that all of us have this, let's say, essence about us, but this when someone you love dies, or somebody that knows you really well, when they pass away, a part of them goes into everybody. You kind of like you disperse and you go back into the living, and you cycle through these top three chakras, or maybe possibly, because this kind of explains why NDEs are all different. Some people that have NDEs say they saw nothing; all they saw was black. Um, to me, that's not a bad thing. What that means is that you didn't raise your energy past the 51% mark. So you have to go back down to the root, and the roots are in darkness. So it's not nothing to be scared of. It's nothing to be frightened of. It's just a process that happens to people who, I wouldn't say aren't loving, but they never worked on themselves to raise that energy. So they have a completely different NDE than anybody else. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm a little bit distracted because I keep disappearing partially.
Yeah.
So
All
I
right.
am listening though. No, that's a good message. And I think a lot of people who listen to this will probably understand this to some degree or at least want to
Oh
look
yeah,
into
I
it.
think they will.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people waking up in our day and age. I found out that in something happened in 1998 that not too many people knew about.
What was
Remember
that?
you remember in 2012 they thought it was going to be like the end of the world because all the planets were going to line up in perfect alignment.
Right.
Yeah, and it didn't have. I mean, nothing happened to the world, but in 1998 the same thing happened, but nobody broadcasted it. So I don't know if just me being in the right place at the right time, listening to my inner guidance say get to the beach. And then I also found out that when I told my mom about the experience, uh, she's like, "Well, you used to live there," and I'm like, "What?" She goes, "Yeah, when you were like 1 or 2 years old, we lived in Santa Cruz,"
Hmm.
and I didn't know it.
That's
I I
interesting.
I, I never I just felt drawn to the place, and then I found out years later that that storm, the swell that came in that year from that storm, was a big deal. It was a big. It doesn't happen very often. I found out. Steamer Lane breaks big all the time because I've been back there probably 8 years, maybe not in a row, but 8 total years. I've been back to Santa Cruz, and those beautiful trees that lined the hotel were gone. They fell
Oh
into the ocean.
no.
Yeah, I know. I was so upset because it'd been like 4 or 5 years since I went, and those trees were gone. And I'm like, it felt like a part of me went with them. So I
Yeah,
don't
I get it.
know.
Yeah,
Yeah. We have a contact with our tree friends.
absolutely. Well, Doug, it's been great talking to you and listening to your
Sure.
surfing stories. For our listeners who don't know, I grew up surfing too, and so Doug and I had a little conversation before we did this and talked to about some of that a little bit, and so we have some things in common there. Um, I appreciate you coming on. And
Yeah,
are you open to people contacting you?
sure. If this hat of mine I'm wearing, Brothers of Water is a company that I started because a friend of mine said to me one day that he's a buddy of mine that sorts with me all the time. Called me on the phone and said, "You know, Doug, I'm really glad you're in my life." I said, he said, you know, because he's into the same things I'm into also. He's into Alan Watts, he's into Osho, and he sorts with me. But he just like said to me, I really appreciate everything you've done for me and just being there in my life. And I said, yeah, I know that's because we're brothers of water. And when I said that, I was like, I like that.
Yeah, that's good.
I like that. That's catchy. So uh, trying to share this book that I wrote called the Wave Whisperer. Uh, I I didn't care about publishing it, so I just offered it to all my friends for free. I just gave it away. And
Right.
if you want to post that free link to all the stories that you and I just shared, plus a bunch more, be my guest.
Okay, will do. Will do.
Yeah, I mean,
And I'll post a link to your book on Amazon and so on.
okay, cool,
And
buddy.
we'll try to have you on again and maybe go into some more detail on some of the stuff that we talked about on how to meditate or how to get to samadhi
Yeah,
type
maybe
of
we could do
thing.
another interview after we hear some feedback from the audience.
Yeah, yeah.
That'd be cool. That'd be
See what
cool.
they want
Yeah.
to know. All right. Well, thank you again, my friend, and appreciate you coming on and
All right.
enjoy the conversation. And we'll talk to you soon.
All right, my friend. Take care then. Bye, everybody. Peace. Hola.
Peace.